Welcome back, everyone. Hope you all had a good lunch.
For our next presentation, we're pleased to have Mr. Pearson back. Mr. Renaldo Michael Pearson describes himself as a social entrepreneur. He is the academic coordinator of Winthrop House at Harvard University, as many of you will know from yesterday. He majored in political science with a pre-law concentration at Morehouse College. The college's newspaper also named him as one of the 6 most distinguished men of the class of 2011.
Mr. Pearson is also recognized as the most well-spoken member of his graduating class in 2011, and he has served as a senior advisor to the Morehouse College Presidential Search Program in 2012. His topic today is titled, Why Harry Potter Chose Harvard, a host system that continues to cultivate top talent. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Pearson on stage.
Two in one day. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. You'll have to excuse my tardiness as I ate something last night that made me terribly ill. As good as there was last night, something just didn't agree with my body. Fortunately, Dr. Sam came and took me to the closest drugstore, and I'm feeling much, much, much better. So, it is so great to be here in Hong Kong for the first time and to share this space and time with you. Speaking of the times, as the only American presenter, let me say this at the outset. I know that you all have been watching the news and paying close attention to American politics, particularly the current presidential campaign. I'm sure by now you've noticed that there's, shall we say, a man running for president. To this, I only have one thing to say. If this man becomes the next president of the United States, you'll have to change my credentials from visiting scholar to scholar in residence. All right, now that that's established, I want to extend a heartfelt thanks to Dr. Robert Chung, Michelle Chang, Dr. Sam Chu, and the entire conference team for the extremely gratuitous hospitality that indubitably will, and in fact already has, made this one of the most memorable trips of my life. I look forward to cultivating our partnership over the next few weeks, months, and years ahead. All right, now to the fun stuff. So I'm going to talk a little with this PowerPoint presentation, but I want to give equal time to questions and answers near the middle. So let's, you've seen the abstract by now, a few amendments, so it's worth reading here. Did you know that Harvard's freshman dining hall, Annenberg Hall, was modeled after the same Oxford University dining hall, the hall at Christ Church, that inspired the dining hall, Great Hall, of Hogwarts in the Harry Potter movies? Did you know that Harvard has 3 times as many houses as Hogwarts? Did you know that Harvard's Strauss Cup and its intramural sports competitions among the houses preceded Hogwarts House Cup and its Department of Magical Games and Sports? The fictional wizard prodigy Harry Potter went to the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. But Hogwarts, in many ways, was modeled after Harvard. This probably explains why Harry Potter creator J.K. Rowling suggested during her commencement address at Harvard a few years ago, back in 2008, as a matter of fact, that Harvard's commencement ceremony could very well pass for the world's largest Gryffindor reunion. And in reality, a talented prodigy from across the globe choose Harvard to cultivate their gifts and enable them to change the world. Whether aiming to be the next John F. Kennedy, Al Gore, Ben Bernanke, Bill Gates, or Mark Zuckerberg, to name just a few of our notable alumni, the world's top high school graduates choose Harvard because of the indelible character-building experience that it promises. This experience predicated on the residential college or house system, inspired by that of Cambridge and Oxford universities, otherwise known as Oxbridge, in turn prepares them to lead successful and fulfilling lives. So as you can see here, on the left is the hall at Christ Church, Oxford University, which inspired Annenberg Hall, which is to the right, at Harvard College. This is the Great Hall of Hogwarts. Striking similarities there. These are the 4 houses of Hogwarts on the left, and on the right, these are the 12 houses of Harvard. The bottom right, you'll see it says yard, the H, that signifies the fact that all of the freshmen live in dormitories on the main yard. Winthrop House, where I work, and serve as academic coordinator and acting house administrator most recently, we probably would say that we're more aligned with, as you can see top left there, Gryffindor, where Harry Potter actually was associated. There's the lion, and of course Winthrop's lion. That is the shield of John Winthrop, the Winthrop family. John Winthrop was the first governor of Massachusetts, and his grandson, also by the name of John Winthrop, was a scientist and also president of Harvard University. So we go here to talk about the intramural sports, and top left here is Harry Potter, as you can see, playing a match of Quidditch. Interestingly enough, you can come to Harvard in the spring, and you'll find students playing the same game. Of course, they're not airborne, but they have brooms between their legs, and they're running, and the same rules apply. Interesting, very interesting. The computer here is not compatible with the latest version of PowerPoint that I have. There's actually a video here, so I'll escape this screen. It doesn't play from the PowerPoint, this version of PowerPoint, but there's a 2-minute clip that gives a brief overview of intramurals at Harvard.
So I like intramurals as an opportunity to play sports that I played regularly in high school, but in a much less formal setting. You get to hang out with a lot of members in your house, develop some house pride, but also enjoy some time competing against some of the other houses in a pretty fun and often pretty intense environment.
So it keeps me active once in a while. You know, it's a hard student to get a little lost in schoolwork. And built some friendships with these guys. You know, I play all kinds of sports with them. I did play football in high school, so this is my chance to, play a sport I never played before.
I enjoy kind of the study break aspect of it. You know, it's kind of a good way to get a stress release. Just enough competition to make it exciting, but still, relax so you can have fun.
I improved last spring, which was a lot of fun. The Iron Swim Meet, never swim competitively, but I just joined in this year and had a good time.
I've done the Iron Swim Meet for the last 3 years now. Exactly, it's a huge amount of fun. We get a really varied combination of people who try to make everything as possible. And I'd say that's one of the best things about it. Depending on how many sports you play, there's at least 2 or 3 games a week. And it's a blast. Regardless of whether you win or lose, you're playing with your friends, and that's what matters.
Must be a different mic by the pool. Right. And there's some actual intramural sports that were not featured in that video. I think it was Dr. Sam's favorite is, people call it rowing.
Hey, do you have any openings left?
It costs how much to play?
I was in class all day, missed registration.
I'm assuming that's an automatic play, yeah. Let me X out of that completely. That's not in the presentation. So yes, here's the full gamut of intramural sports through amongst the houses. That is, once freshmen become second year, sophomore, junior, and seniors. In the fall, this semester that would be, you have flag football, soccer, A-League volleyball, ultimate frisbee. The minor sports would be B-League volleyball, tennis. Then there's the Charles River Run, the intertube water polo, which you did see in the video. The badminton, you guys are familiar with, I hear. And in the winter, there's ice hockey, A-League basketball, squash. There's B-League basketball. And by the way, the A-League, B-League, C-League, since there are 12 houses, they break them up into different leagues, and that's how that works out. Then there's the climbing tournament, rock climbing tournament, dodgeball tournament, women's 3 versus 3 basketball, kickball tournament, table tennis tournament, foosball tournament. Futsal. I'm not too familiar with that one. Then there is the major sports in spring. Volleyball, men's A crew. That would be the rowing that you all have seen in many movies. The movie on Facebook, the social network, featured that. The crew team, softball, and then you have track relay, the swim meet, ultimate frisbee is a huge sport. I'm not sure how many have actually seen ultimate frisbee be played. Has that ever been played here? No, mixed reviews. Yeah, so it's actually much like playing football. So they will actually literally, instead of having the football, they'll throw the frisbee, and the sport is played just like that. It's really interesting to see. I didn't know it was such thing as ultimate frisbee until I began working at Harvard and saw how intense it is. So yes, ultimate frisbee, soccer, tennis, Charles River Run again, and then a fencing meet. And again, back to the parallels between Hogwarts and Harvard. So Hogwarts, of course, has the House Cup, which this cartoon version of Harry Potter is holding up after Gryffindor wins the sports competitions amongst the 4 houses. And I happen to hail from the champion house, Winthrop House. And that beautiful trophy that I am actually seated holding with the faculty dean's son and the faculty dean, that's Stephanie Robinson over the son, and then her husband, faculty dean Ron Sullivan, in the red and black with the shades on. We're holding the Strauss Cup. So we're the champion house, and we have been consecutively the last 2 years, and before that it was like 10 years straight. So we try to keep the Strauss Cup and the championship to ourselves. Now, of course, Harry Potter didn't really choose Harvard. Cat's out the bag, right? He is fictitious after all. But the real child prodigies do choose Harvard, and they go on to be the John F. Kennedys, Al Gores, Ben Bernanke's, Bill Gates, and Mark Zuckerbergs of the world. This is largely due to the rich character building experience that all of our students receive through our house or residential college system. So, what makes our house system successful? How does it work? I see since these two versions of PowerPoint aren't exactly compatible. The formatting is a bit off here. But I argue that the structure really falls along two registers, and that is the administrative staff and tutors, which comprise the senior common room, or SCR, and that is the two faculty deans. You've seen a picture of them, you'll see another. The assistant dean, the academic coordinator, myself, the house administrator, also acting in that capacity also, as chief operating officer, the building manager, 20 resident tutors, and as I shared yesterday, there are about 300 to 500 students in each house. Winthrop happens to have about 420. So 20 resident tutors that do the day-to-day advising, and 50 plus. Winthrop has about 65 non-resident tutors. And these are, by the way, the 20 resident tutors, I've shared this yesterday also, they're all graduate students. And the 50 non-resident tutors who do the professional advising, 50 plus non-resident tutors who do the professional advising, they are medical doctors, they are lawyers, they are business professionals, and other professionals. And they advise our students on the careers that they might want to pursue. That, to a large extent, explains how the Harvard house system is so successful. Secondly, there is the sense of community and shared identity. Of course, there is the identifying insignia, the shield itself, and our Latin motto. Unlike our colleagues at Oxbridge, where each college has its own mission and vision, that is not necessarily the case at Harvard. We may have mottos. In this case, Winthrop's Latin motto is Spes Vincit Thronum, or Hope Conquers the Throne. And I have in parentheses there the mission of Harvard College, which is to educate the citizens and citizen leaders for our society. And we do this through our commitment to the transformative power of a liberal arts and sciences education. So yes, the shield and motto, that identifying insignia, and then B here is the facilities themselves. Not only the housing, right, where students can have what we call blockmates. They'll sign up to have a blockmate of peers or folk that they want to room with. But then each house has its own dining hall. And that's actually pictured there, Winthrop's dining hall, the bottom right there. And its library, Winthrop's library, bottom left there. Each house has its own library. Each house has its own dining hall. Each house has its own SCR, Senior Common Room, where the members of the administrative staff and tutors, and also those who we invite to the Senior Common Room, maybe a Noam Chomsky or a Ban Ki-moon, folks who have visited Winthrop, and we invite them to be a member of our Senior Common Room. They will come and give talks in the actual physical Senior Common Room and teas. Then there's the JCR, the Junior Common Room. And the Junior Common Room is comprised of all of our students. But there's also an actual physical room where students have parties and socials, where the House Committee, which is essentially the student government for Winthrop House, where they have weekly meetings on every Sunday. And then we have the courtyards themselves, where students have picnics, where we hold our commencement, which I also reference later on. And what also contributes to that community, again, is those house intramurals. I cannot stress enough how integral the house IMs, as you heard some students abbreviate and refer to in that video, the IMs are literally what makes the house system at Harvard. And then we have other special events and programming, some of which I've already alluded to. There is at least two programs a week. An array of study breaks. We have wellness workshops where students can participate in massages or have a yoga session, a workout session, because we want to make sure that we put a high emphasis on wellness. It's not enough for you to work very hard, spend all-nighters, and stress yourself out, and get those grades and marks that you want, those internships even, and fellowships that you want. But we always emphasize wellness also. And that's how we strike that work-life balance. And then, of course, there's commencement. So there's the university ceremony on the main yard, but then there's also the diploma awarding ceremony, where all of the students, and that's the highlight, the graduates actually come back to the houses, and each house awards the actual diplomas to the graduates. And that's just bonus footage there. That's myself there as I am about to. The graduates are on the left before the actual university commencement ceremony, and on the right, that's the diploma awarding ceremony. Myself with the faculty dean, Ron Sullivan, right before I call all of our graduates up to one by one to receive their diplomas. And that pretty much sums it up. Again, I wanted to open it up more to questions, so you could ask me anything that lingers in your mind about the Harvard House system, and that way I could give you any answers, because I saw that several other times we were only able to get in one or two questions, and I saw others that actually wanted to get some questions out. Question?
No, I just want to clarify. I think that the slide just before this, before the end slide, when you had the other one, this is just for one house, is it?
Yes.
It's just for one house.
This
is
is
two faculty deans.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah. But that's so the faculty dean. Initially, they were called house masters. Right?
That's right.
And I think we talked about, many of you were here when we talked about the name change due to
Right.
race relations. Although house master actually refers to magister, which doesn't mean race, but it means magister. So initially there was just the master. Whoever that appointment was, it was just the master. But given the relations and the view of how the wife, usually it's the wife who was not the master, and the male who was the master, and the wife saw themselves as partners, and they were doing much of the job, and that's the case for Winthrop. I know Stephanie Robinson, she does just as much, if not more, as Ron Sullivan. So that's when they changed the position to co-masters.
That's right.
And now it's faculty deans.
Okay, so the co-masters or faculty deans, that referred to as the two faculty deans.
That's right.
Okay, now my question is the following. You have you have a 69 something professional non-resident tutors.
Yes.
They are all academic staff from faculty, are they?
No. These are professionals that are gone on into their careers, most of which are alumni.
I see.
Yeah. So they have already done their postgraduate work, if required, and or they're successful. They are already doctors, lawyers.
So they are
CEOs.
part-time kinds of helping out in some ways in the house.
Yeah, they advise. They literally. So the resident tutors do the day-to-day advising. Right, they're there. They live on the campus. They are eating lunch with the students, and they are advising the students on academic matters. But the non-resident tutors, they're not seen as much, but they have a presence. All the students have a directory of who they are, so they can reach out to them. And in the case of our medical or pre-med students, they're assigned a doctor that are one of our pre-med doctors, non-res doctors, who will advise them on what medical school they might want to apply to and the like.
Okay. Do you really have a system per se? Do you have 11 or how many houses?
12 houses and a 13.
Do they form a system? In other words, anybody, super dean, whoever's overseeing the whole houses, how they do exactly.
So there's the dean of the college. There's the dean of the college who is technically the administrative head of the college. And then above even the dean of, so even before you get to the dean of the college, you have a dean of student life. The dean of student life is the direct supervisor, if you will, of the faculty deans. And then above the Dean of Student Life is the Dean of the college, who's the head of the college. And then above him is the Provost of the university, and then the President of the university, Drew Fauci. Yes. Thank you for your question. Any other questions?
Hi, Renaldo.
Yes.
Regarding the two faculty deans, I assume one is the main one, another one is the spouse of the main faculty dean. And so for this second faculty dean, what was the expectation? And also that, say, will this second faculty dean get any honorarium for the position? That's number one question. Another question is regarding the academic coordinator. I'd like to know what exactly this person do in the house. And then the third, regarding the 50 plus tutors, non-resident tutors. What's the level of involvement in your house?
Of the non-resident tutors?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so let me start with the last question. The non-resident tutors do not live, obviously, on campus, but they do have meal plans. They do have meal plans, so they can come and have lunch, breakfast, lunch, or dinner with students. Many of them do. And if there are students who are contemplating going into corporate America, we have non-resident tutors that can speak to that. If there are students who are considering becoming a medical doctor, we have non-resident tutors that can speak to that. They are actually professional and successful doctors. And the same is true for lawyers and even other professional pursuits. So that's the extent to which non-resident tutors are involved. Regarding your first question about the faculty deans and one being the main faculty dean, no, they both are the faculty deans. There might be one who attracted the appointment, right? But there is no, oh, this one is a lesser faculty dean than the other. This one has more responsibility than the other. They share the role in literally every way. They share the role. For instance, at the commencement, at the diploma awarding ceremony, both faculty deans give a speech. Both faculty deans give a speech, in addition to the assistant dean, who also gives one. You might guess that it's not a long speech, given that 3 people have to get up and address the graduates, but they both at least talk for 5 minutes or so. And in terms of the salary, they actually have the equivalent of small mansions on this campus. So Winthrop House, there's an adjoining master's residence or faculty dean residence where they reside. And many times these faculty deans are faculty either at the college or at one of the professional schools, some way, some shape or form. For instance, for Winthrop House, our faculty deans, Ron Sullivan, he is a law professor at Harvard Law School, and he's also the director of the Criminal Justice Institute and the Child Advocacy Workshop. So he's already getting paid enough. Then he has the free housing on top of that. Really nice house that comes with that also. And his wife, Stephanie Robinson, she is a lecturer at the law school also. So that's the kind of the perks that come along with that job. I should also mention, before I go to your second question, that Harvard, the college, has actually just entered into a house renewal capital campaign and program. So so Winthrop House is actually the next house up for renovation. The last house that has been renovated is Dunster House, and Winthrop is next. Renovation is already under progress, and it will be finished. We just started in May. Right after commencement, we had to pack up everything and move to what's called swing houses. swing housing and swing offices, swing space, construction will be finished in fall of next year. And then on to the next house, which will be lower house. So to your second question, the role of the academic coordinator. The academic coordinator really is responsible for monitoring the academic progress of all of the students. So I monitor the grades. I also plan commencement. I stay on top of senior progress, track senior progress to make sure all seniors are on track to graduate. Make sure they're getting all their reminders about certain deadlines, registration deadlines, fellowship deadlines, graduation deadlines, the application to graduate. As you saw there, also say all of their names, pronounce all of their names as they walk across the stage, which is a harder feat than you might think, given the fact that we have students from literally across the world. So that's a process in and of itself. What else? It is literally a nonstop job with academic coordinator. I'm trying to think of all the other projects that come along with that position. And then, of course, we're also on the same team, so many times we take on responsibilities that don't necessarily fall within our purview. Then also, how could I forget this? I also liaise with the administrative board, which is comprised of all of the assistant deans of each house. The administrative board is the board and body that deals with academic decisions, so status changes whenever there's a student who wants to take a leave of absence, or a student who performed poorly the last semester, and we will have decided they will be on probation, or even disciplinary things. Something happened in the dining hall that was not to our standards. A student can be disciplined for that, whether they're suspended, on disciplinary probation, or a host of other things. So I liaise with the administrative board, write those letters in correspondence to students, their advisors, their tutor advisors, and their concentration advisors, or major advisors. So whichever department their degree or concentration will be in, those advisors will get correspondence from me. And also their parents. So whether I have to send a letter to Hong Kong or to Boston, Massachusetts, that's also, that falls within the purview of the academic coordinator also.
Sorry, some follow-up question.
Yes.
Now, for the academic coordinator, let's say if a student gets C or D, then will the person in the role of academic coordinator do anything? And also that regarding for the second dean, what's the qualification? Let's say can a housewife or a house husband can be in that position. And regarding
the second faculty dean or assistant dean?
The second faculty dean.
Yes, it's always the spouse. So the second faculty dean is always the spouse. Or partner. Yes, spouse, partner, yes. Yes, that's right. No, it's, because we actually just appointed our first Black same-sex partners who are faculty deans of Courier House. Of course, Ron and Stephanie Robinson of Winthrop were the first Black faculty deans, but these are the first Black same-sex partners at Harvard. But before that, even before Ron and Stephanie became the faculty deans of Winthrop House, there was a same-sex couple that were appointed housemasters of Lowell House. So yes, spouse or partner. Yes.
Well, how do you match tutors with students?
So yes, so the resident tutors are matched according to entryway. So we'll have a resident tutor in, say, A entryway, which has maybe 20 or 30 students. And so if they're, staying on the top floor, all the students that are on that side of the building are their responsibility. And for the non-resident tutors, the only ones that get matched are the pre-med students and the medical professionals that are non-resident tutors. The others, they have a choice. They have a directory that they have a choice of actually reaching out according to the person they think is most interesting. Sure.
Thank you. I've got a question around alumni and fundraising. Because it does seem to be one of the big advantages of residential colleges, halls, houses, etc., is that people develop an identity, a relationship, their heart is moved and warmed by the experience, and when that happens, they are more able to give money back. And my understanding is that Harvard has had a penny or two that has come back from their alumni over the years. I'm just wondering, does that money go back to the house, individual houses, or does it go centrally? Is there tension between the two of those? So there's that other, what are the dynamics around that? And the second completely different question was we saw an extensive video around a lot of muscular activity, a lot of sport out there. And I'm just wondering what tensions exist in that area. In my experience, in my context, generally, when we're doing well at sport and sport people are organised, they're also doing well academically, which is not what a lot of people think is the case. But generally, for us, it goes together. Yeah. And I'm just wondering but there are occasions where you have to talk to individuals and say, you're not here primarily to do this. I'm just one of those two different issues of culture.
Yeah, to the second, because that's the easiest, it's the same for Harvard. It's rare that we find a student that's taking, how can we say this, intramurals too seriously, right? Where that becomes their sole identity and they're distracted from their academics. It's very rare. This is something that's become really a catharsis, an outlet for them in between classes, and a rallying method, if you will, for their house. They take house pride very seriously. Yes, and your first question again was about the first question was about fundraising. Yeah. So most of it goes to Central. That is correct. Most of it does go to Central, and each house gets an allocated budget, right? So they each get a budget, but that budget is how can I put this? Ridiculously small. It's just an iota of what obviously is raised in a capital campaign. But there's an interplay there because although that budget is annualized, 6 figures or so, prior to that system, each house actually did have its own endowment. And in order to make things more egalitarian, there was one assigning students to a house, right, randomly, as opposed to, the different ways where students' legacies or whatever the case may be, they would end up associated with this one house, and this one house had so much money and the best students and so on and so forth. So randomization took place at what's called the housing day, where a lottery is given for, and housing assignments are randomized. But secondly, that other thing, where they started to actually allocate the budget across the houses equally. But again, there's also an interplay with regard to the capital campaign. The endowment sits somewhere around $40 billion now. It's like $37 billion. The last capital campaign was for about $5 or $7 billion. It was successful. But they used as a major plank of this capital campaign the house renewal effort and initiative, which was it was a $2 billion part of this capital campaign. So that actually, it's funny because they actually studied that and saw that it actually inspired alumni to give more, because they saw that it would actually go back to restoring the houses, renovating the houses, which they love so much. And those houses, at least the ones that have yet to be renovated, they're not the most luxurious accommodations. So I think that also played into why alumni were so inspired to give back if they knew it was going to house renewal. Yes.
This may be more of a West type question, but I think it's relevant internationally. And that is, among your staff, who's responsible for sort of the care and overseeing the diversity issues, the gender issues, the sexuality issues, the cultural ones? Because I know, particularly East Coast and the U.S., is a very diverse society. Making sure that and it's a complex issue.
Almost certainly. I'm glad you asked. And that's where the head is so important. The faculty deans are really important in that regard. And I'm glad to say that Winthrop plays a leading role in employing strategic diversity. So not only is the administrative staff diverse, but the tutors are diverse. 5 out of the 20 tutors are tutors of color. But in addition to that, in terms of the sexuality and gender roles and things of that nature, or even sexual harassment, there are, amongst the resident tutors, they all have specialties. So you have a gender and sexuality tutor. You have a sexual assault and harassment tutor. You have a race relations tutor. Then you have a pre-med, pre-law, so on and so forth. So they are very intentional in that way to make sure that these stress areas are accounted for.
I just heard you say that students are assigned randomly to each house, so students themselves have no choice at all.
No, they don't. So if after they are assigned to a house, that they just vehemently oppose going to Lowell or Dunster or Courier, whatever the case may be, then they can apply to transfer to another house. But that's not common at all. So we have a few. In fact, Winthrop, for instance, to give you an idea of how many transfers a house might get each year, Winthrop, we are getting 4 inter-house transfers. So it's not much at all. Sure.
Hi. Hey. Thanks, Renaldo, for your presentation. I'd like to ask 2 questions which may or may not be interrelated. You've spoken about sexuality, and we know that there has been some issues raised regarding sexual assaults on not just American campuses, but it's been happening in various parts of the world.
Yeah.
And it's also not unrelated to alcohol use. So I learned that there is a concern from an educational point of view about what's called positive bystander intervention on the part of fellow students, for example. So that's one cluster of issues. Then you might have known some things about freshman orientation in this part of the world. There have been certain kinds of practices and so on. So that second question is, what would be the kind of freshman orientation experience that you would find at Harvard?
Yes. So let me say from the outset that hazing and that sort of thing is strongly looked down upon, frowned upon, and not tolerated whatsoever. So during the freshman orientation, it is strictly informative. Students can meet their freshman proctors in their dormitories. I'm not on the freshman. I'm not in the freshman universe too much. Obviously, at Winthrop we deal with the upperclassmen, but I do know for sure that that hazing culture is not tolerated at all. A student can and will be reprimanded if there are instances of hazing during orientation or any other event throughout the school year. Because external to Harvard, there is already what's called final clubs. So they're already something of a fraternity or sorority at Harvard. And they have houses, and they already have, and they're separate from Harvard, but they're kind of not, because they have real estate, that is spread throughout Cambridge, Massachusetts, and right there in the midst of campus. And it's funny, interesting, I should say, because the dean of the college has made it his mission now. This kind of speaks to your first point, to rein in on final clubs. He is pushing to make them co-ed, to accept both sexes, both genders, and also to crack down on rape culture, which tends to be, as you expertly pointed to, correlated with alcoholism. So the more we rein in on that, the better I think the university does. Sure. I have 5 minutes.
Yes, I think so, hopefully. Yes, actually, I was quite fascinated to hear you talk about the 2 faculty deans, and this is really a point of clarification.
Sure.
I get that the 2 of them are married couples, spouse and so on, or partners.
Mm-hmm.
What if, but must they both be actual faculty from the college? Because what if the spouse is, unemployed or whatever it is, might not be so suitable, perhaps, for the role, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So again, that's why I said that there's always one who extracts the appointment.
That's
right.
Yes.
But
because you give them equal status, so I'm just wondering, how would the other one, who might not command the same, shall we say, level of respect,
Sure.
actually be able to carry out his or her duties,
Sure.
given the fact that he or she is not a faculty member, for example?
Sure. Yeah. And the interesting thing is that there was some pushback from the assistant deans, who were saying, well, all the faculty deans are actually faculty, so I don't think, that is an appropriate name change. Nevertheless, they obviously won that debate. So again, there is always one, at least, who attracts the appointment. And I think it's similar to President and First Lady in the United States of America, federal government, whereas, there are some First Ladies who take a hands-off approach. But there are others like President Roosevelt, FDR, his wife Eleanor Roosevelt, was very hands-on. And many said that she was the vice president.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I guess I was fascinated by the fact that they're given actually ostensibly the same powers and the same
both signatures are on the diploma.
Right.
Both signatures are on the diploma.
That's right. So it's not so much that whether or not he or she is suitable, they're given that mandate anyway, which I find very fascinating and very egalitarian, which is great. If I may be permitted a quick second question. How do you make sure that the students in the houses actually do community work or community engagement? Because allegedly, obviously, there's a very elite system.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that they, learn values of humility and giving back to society?
Yeah, so we also have a public service specialty tutor. That's another. We have a public service specialty tutor, and that tutor is responsible for sharing opportunities like that with the house listserv and the dining hall and the like. But it's also incumbent, again, it goes back to the head, the faculty deans. If they make this a strong value, then they're able to rally the troops in that way. And I can say that the faculty deans of Winthrop this year, I remember the staff meeting we had just 2 months before the school year started about how we want to do even more community service than we were already doing. We have already partnerships with local prisons where our students go and tutor or help prisoners who are actually trying to complete an associate's degree and the like. So that's just one area. We also have the Phillips Brooke House Association, which is a university organization, and many students volunteer through Phillips Brooke House to do different programs to support the homeless and to volunteer at food banks and the like. Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
If I just to follow up, for little I know, I happen to know about 2 or 3 couples who serve as used to be masters and now the faculty deans. They work interviewed together. One of them has to be the faculty member, the other one. My question to you is the discipline. disciplinary committee on actions.
Yeah.
Are students mainly responsible for the disciplinary committee works in case some students violate code of conduct, whatever, or the student affairs office does that?
So yes, so I alluded to the ad board. That is the administrative board. The administrative board is comprised of the 12 assistant deans. The 12 assistant deans are the adjudicators. And then there's also a secretary of the administrative board who works out of the central administration, who pretty much but there was a recent change to make a separate, or a second, I shouldn't say separate, but it's also separate, a second body in addition to the administrative board, which, by the way, if you saw the social network, which was docudrama about the Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, the administrative board was that body that he kept, being interviewed by and was questioned by. That was the administrative board. But there's this new second body called the Honor Council that the dean has just implemented. And this Honor Council actually does have students that sit on it in addition to any faculty or administrators. But this does have students on it. And that's for cases of academic dishonesty, plagiarism, and the like.
If there are no more questions, then thank you everyone for your participation, and also thank you, Mr. Pearson, for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you all.